Our next presentation in today's lead marketing conference from CPG Matters deals with leveraging artificial intelligence for on-demand CPG insights and analytics. We have two speakers, Mike Finley and Joey Gaspierik, both from AnswerRocket. Joey, the podium is yours.
Thank you, John, and thank you everyone for joining us today and giving us an opportunity to speak with you. As John mentioned, my name is Joey Gaspierik. I'm an enterprise account executive here at AnswerRocket, and I deal with all things global enterprise accounts for our company and interface with our customers on a daily basis and have been for the past 6 years. And then I'm joined by Mike Finley. Mike, if you want to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joey. Mike Finley, co-founder and CTO of AnswerRocket. And in this case, that means I get to be at the forefront of a lot of really interesting technology to talk about today.
Yep. We're lucky to have Mike with us today because he can help us understand all of the things that are coming with ChatGPT and the integrations with augmented analytics and tools like AnswerRocket. And what we do at AnswerRocket, really our mission has always been, how do we make it easy for business users to get insights? It's been traditionally very hard to do that. And we're trying to make that much easier. And we have been over the past 10 years or so, but starting to get even easier with these integrations with things like GPT. We have we're agnostic from a vertical of who we work with, but we have a heavy footprint in the CPG space. You can see some of our clients listed at the bottom of the screen. And what we want to cover today is really sort of the traditional approach of augmented analytics and what AnswerRocket has done over the past several years of helping users get to these insights. But then with GPT technology, how does that change things? How does it make it even easier? And we're going to show you a couple of demos and you'll leave here having a vision of what we've done and what we are doing and where we are going. And where the space is going. So it should be an exciting conversation for you all to see some of these examples. And like John said, please ask questions as we go. I want to start off with a poll. The first poll we have here is around GPT-enabled solutions. So let me go ahead and bring the survey up, poll 1. And is your company using or planning to use GPT-enabled solutions? Please select one response, and I'll go ahead and wait for the results to come in. Please select something so we know a little bit more about what the audience is doing. And I'll give it about 10 seconds or so, so please make those selections about halfway through here. All right. Final call. Okay, so I'm going to end the voting on that and share the results out. It looks like about 14% of the respondents said yes, they are planning to use it. Not yet clear on what they are doing. 5% said yes, we are using it for one or more specific use case. And then about 40% of the folks said no, we don't currently plan. We're waiting and waiting to see what will happen, which is kind of in line with what we've seen as well in terms of the conversations that we've had. So let me go back to the presentation. And what I really want to do is talk about how you can use AI in analytics. And I want to start with a more traditional approach of what we've been doing over the past 7 years. And anytime I meet with a customer, I show them this slide here. And it says analysis at most CPGs. This could be analysis at most companies, right? Every company has a ton of data. It's in a data warehouse. It's disparate. It doesn't really matter. You have a lot of it. And you're accessing this data through Excel spreadsheets, through massive pivot tables, through dashboards, a combination of all three of these. And what happens is you really follow the big red numbers on those things. You look for those dips. Sure, there's spikes too, but we're really interested in the things that are not going well. We want to dig into those. And when that happens, a business user is going to say, well, I need help answering this question. It's very hard for them to answer it in that Excel spreadsheet. So they tag an analyst, and that analyst goes off on what we call the vicious cycle. They go and grab data, put it into a presentation, bring it back to that user, and one of two things happens. Either that's not really the answer that I was looking for, the question that I asked, so try again, or you did a really good job of answering that. Now I have 5 more questions, and that's why we call it the vicious cycle. And this is sort of constant at every company that we work with. And what that looks like at a high level is everybody on this call works for a consumer goods company, right? You sell snacks or beverages or paper products or something of that nature, and you're an expert at doing that, right? But you're spending all of your time digging through the data, trying to find insights, trying to find that aha moment, that nugget that can help you take the right action in the marketplace. And then you only have about 20% of your time left to be that expert that you were hired to be, right? And then everyone goes, well, we already have self-service. Why do we need anything else? But that self-service, as you can see here, it's a small fraction of solving that problem. And then it gets into that vicious cycle that we talked about. So what we're doing at AnswerRocket is flipping this on its head. We're saying, how do we use AI and machine learning to automate the answers to the questions that the business teams have, so you can spend less time digging through that data and more time being an expert, more time driving strategy, more time taking action in the marketplace. And then the real kicker is, how do you do this truly with self-service? How do I do this so when a business user has a question, they don't have to call an analyst. They can answer it on their own. And this is, again, going back to our mission statement, what we've been setting off to do over time. And our approach is pretty simple, right? That data source where that data lives, we connect to it. We integrate with different data science models as well. So a user can start asking questions similar to whenever you're asking Siri or Alexa a question. You can just type it in your computer and say, hey, a simple question. What were sales by month for a specific brand in a specific market, right? You get an answer back with visualization and insights. But thanks to these different models that we integrate with, you can get into the more complex question. Hey, what's next month's forecast? Or what's driving my market share? Or who's winning, who's losing, and why? What are the big drivers of a specific metric? These are the types of questions that our users can ask thanks to the approach that we have from an augmented analytics perspective. So what I want to do is say, you're probably, well, how does that work, right? So let me put sort of a demo in front of you of what we've done historically, so you can see how our users have been interacting with AnswerRocket. And I'm just going to use a simple demo environment that we have here. It's some Nielsen syndicated data on the pasta category in the US. I could sit here for an hour and show you a lot of really cool things with AnswerRocket, but what I'm going to focus on today is just a simple user experience of asking some questions, getting some answers and some insights using what we call our Explore functionality. So again, I'm connected to this data. I'll start typing questions like, what were sales and market share? And in this case, I'll pick Ebro Foods pasta by month, right? And now when I ask this question, what AnswerRocket does is it picks apart the words in that sentence that are important. It passes this query through to the underlying database and brings back a visualization along with insights. So you can see my market share in red, my sales in this sort of purple color here. And then I get insights. So for sales, I can see things like my summary and what was the growth over time, any trends, the CAGRs being calculated, any streaks, as well as outliers, whether they're dips or spikes. And then it does the same thing for market share. It's really just interrogating this data, looking for at the shape of the data. And if it finds any of these things, it's pointing them out to the users automatically. This is all out-of-the-box functionality with AnswerRocket. You can get to different types of visualizations in the solution. You can customize some of the colors and chart types and things like that. But really, the value prop's all around getting to answers fast. The other thing is you can see that I can interact with this chart. I'll click on the most recent month's market share, for instance, and say, let's drill down. As granular as I want to get, in this example, I'll show you pack size. And you can see that the 16 and 12 ounce were really the top two. And it's even saying, hey, they're both 6 times larger than the average of all other base sizes. Now, another example is showing how do we get to more complex answers. So looking at things like, for an example here, I'll show you what are the market share projections for Ebro Foods, say with that pasta. And in this example, when we run a skill like this, where I'm looking at projections, we're actually running 7 different forecast models. We don't have our own sort of algorithm out of the box. We're just using some of the most well-known forecast techniques that exist. And we're just trying to show what's happening, right? So if all else stays the same, what is this trend over time and what will continue into the future? And you can see that it's chosen a seasonal linear forecast here to sort of help predict the future a bit. But it's also doing some interesting things here where it's pointing out outliers, right? So basically, where have things spiked or in the most recent months dipped? And it's so low that it's below the trend, right? Below the model here, below the sort of the worst case scenario of what we expected. So it's a problem, right? In today's day and age, if I said, why did this happen? an analyst would probably say, give me a few minutes or give me a few days. It depends on the question, and they'd come back to you. But with AnswerRocket, I can just click on this point, and I'll use another skill that we have called KPI drivers. And in this case, it's just saying, all right, I have market share. I've got a number of other metrics in this data set that explain and decompose market share. And really quickly, I can start to tell the story about why am I losing? Well, first thing I can see is the market size is actually growing faster than my sales. So that's the big story. I'm just growing slower than the market. But why, right? So then as I follow the left side here, it's easy to see the red boxes. It's a volume issue, and it's predominantly this distribution. So my TDP is down about 8% year over year in this case, and it's a 98 basis point impact on the 139 basis points that I lost from a market share perspective. So quickly, I'm able to get to the hey, why is this metric down? And then another skill we have where we look at the entire market and say, let's look at a market share analysis for the entire pasta category. And I want to look at that by manufacturer and pack size. And I'm going to look at this in P2 2021 as an example month. Now, this is a very rich skill from a sort of a fact perspective. I've got a lot of information on this screen. First off, AnswerRocket did what I asked it to do. It said, all right, here's your pasta category. Here are all the manufacturers that make this up. And it's listed in order of who owns the most share. Now, from left to right, I've got momentum periods. I've got a lot of information up here around my sales, my share, my volume change, velocity change, distribution, price index, average price. So all of this is being calculated on the fly and presented back to the user very quickly. But on the right side over here, it's the so what, right? So I've got a lot of information that's being sort of surfaced where it's telling me that the number one mover in this case from a manufacturer perspective was Pastificio Rana. It gained share with the help of the 20 and 18 ounce and 10 ounce. It looks like they increased their distribution and they lowered their price, which it's saying it allowed for consumers to take advantage of the price promotion. You can see the index is a minus 21 versus the category. Then we look at Ebro Foods to compare that, and it's hurt by that 16 and 12 ounce. You can see the distribution is down. Velocity is moving up, but it looks like that price index is down -1, so lower prices, but not as much as the Pastificio Rana. So showing this because a lot of folks have these big pivot tables, but it's hard to pull the insights out. It's hard to understand where you should focus in and what are those drivers. AnswerRocket's job is to do that very quickly in a matter of seconds, right? So you can start to form your next questions, use AnswerRocket to then follow up on those questions very easily without pulling in an analyst. And the most important thing is, how do I get back to action fast, right? That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to beat my competition to the market. So that is the very quick demo that I wanted to show you of sort of how we're doing this today. So what I want to do now is go back into the presentation and talk about the new thing. Along came ChatGPT. So none of that I just showed you did anything with ChatGPT. That was just Mike Finley doing some magic in the AnswerRocket lab, bringing together an awesome product, and our customers love that. But how does ChatGPT make that better? So first off, let's talk about ChatGPT. And everybody on this call has probably heard of it. I would expect, if you haven't, I would encourage you to go Google it and play around with it so that you can catch up. But ultimately, if you think about the craze of ChatGPT, this is a slide I look at and it just blows my mind. I use Spotify every day. It took 150 days for Spotify to reach 1 million users. I use Instagram every day. I wish I didn't, but I do. It took 75 days for that to reach 1 million users. ChatGPT took 5 days, a working week. It is insane how quickly it got to 1 million users. So it shows me that not only does it work, but it's interesting. People are seeing the value in this and they get pulled into it. And this is where I'm going to bring in Mike, because Mike, why is it interesting? Why is this so different, right?
Right. Yeah. So what happened, right, is the question. Why is ChatGPT so different? And it's funny that the AI world has been plagued for the last 50 years by all these promises that then, kind of turned out to not really be revolutionary. So I think we would all agree that, this isn't Kansas anymore. ChatGPT is the real deal. There's something unique happening here. But the question is, what is it? And so at AnswerRocket, really, we've pivoted our product around the ChatGPT platform in terms of its capabilities, merged it with what we could do. That's all the work that Joey just showed you, merged with ChatGPT. And so we're really very steeped in this technology at this point. So I like to think of it this way. If you think of you know, somebody that you know really well, right? One of those things that we say in natural language is, oh, I know Joey so well I could finish his sentences, right? That's something that tells me that I have a mental model of Joey and I really, really am very familiar with him. Well, essentially, that's what ChatGPT was taught to do. ChatGPT was an AI that was trained to finish sentences, and literally, it was trained to finish every sentence on the internet, plus every sentence in a million different contracts, plus a whole lot of other public domain information, right? So it was trained to figure out what the next word should be. Given the beginning of a sentence, what should the next word be? And all the phenomena that we're experiencing, the many different wild applications of GPT, all stem from that fundamental capability it has, which is to kind of finish the next sentence. So in a lot of ways, GPT is exactly what the AI theorists predicted, right? It's very much like the original Alan Turing paper from the 1940s said, yep, we're going to have to make a baby and it's going to have to learn. And that's how we're going to get AI. And essentially, ChatGPT has become that baby. The key, though, is, we've been building larger and larger databases and larger software programs over time, we've been successful building productivity applications, but we haven't built intelligence before now. The key difference is that that ChatGPT, when it's learning, is not allowed to memorize. And this is an important fact to realize, that it's not allowed. And when I say not allowed, it's basically constrained by its programming to not memorize. That means it's trained on a lot of things from the internet, but it has to learn from those things. It can't just remember everything that's there. It has to learn what's happening in common between all the different statements that it finds. It has to learn the relationships between things. Again, the same way that a baby would. A baby doesn't have a giant Amazon or a Google Cloud to save things in. It's just got to learn things and minimize. So that's what one of the key restrictions on ChatGPT. And so if you tell it, you've got to figure out what the next word is. And by the way, you're not allowed to memorize everything on the internet and just look up what the next word is. Then you end up with this concept of a generative model. It's going to generate the next word. It's not going to look it up. That's what the G is. The G is for generate. The P is for pre-trained. So it's been pre-trained on, like I said, the internet and a million different contracts and a whole lot of other things. And then the T is for transformer. It's this idea. This is the name of a very specific kind of neural network. So putting it all together, we have the original idea of how to make AI turned into something through all the history of artificial intelligence development, into something that finally meets that promise of let's make a baby and be able to train it. And that's how it's come about to be able to do what it does. Let's see. So what is it that it does? Well, in all the use cases for ChatGPT, it starts with a prompt, right? It starts with some sort of a message, and it's going to, like I said earlier, it's going to fill in the blank, right? It's going to tell us what's next in that sentence. And so on one hand, we have to realize that the really cool thing here is that it's solving problems that don't have a specific answer, right? We got really good at saying, turn the heat on when the temperature is below a certain level, right? That kind of threshold problem. Send me an email when this certain condition happens in my data. But we could not, before something like ChatGPT, for large language models, we couldn't do something like what we're showing.
Did we lose Mike? Ruh-roh. I think can everyone hear me on the call? John, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Joey. I think Mike has dropped off.
Maybe you can pick up Joey.
Yeah, I can pick it up, and we'll give Mike a. The good news was Mike's slides were, at least for now, we're sort of coming to a close. So what he was starting with is you can use GPT. Requires a prompt, right? When you go in there, explain like I'm 5 years old, or write something in the form of Dr. Seuss. So it's this, whenever you play with ChatGPT and the technology, you see just how sort of innovative it is. And it's almost like magic. I remember the first time I used it, it was like magic. But if you can harness this from a business perspective, then you can really gain competitive advantage. And what other companies are starting to see is just that. If we can be first here, so it's interesting, whenever we saw on the survey, everyone's talking about, let's just wait and see. You might get left behind with that sort of mentality. And I say that because if you can find a way to use this and leverage it in your business, you will get ahead. You will find ways to get competitive advantage. You can see Unilever, Coca-Cola, Carrefour really leaning into the tech, right? They're starting to see ways that they can use it. And they know that if we can learn now, even if some of these projects fail, then we're getting used to the technology. And I think that's what's really important. But the hard part is all the noise that's out there. I bet everybody on this call probably got an email during this webinar session from some sort of vendor talking about how they're integrated with ChatGPT. And you can see here all of the generative and conversational AI companies that are out there. And it's a lot. It's a lot of noise. Which one do I need? And how do I use these? And what kind of problems can they help me solve? So it's very difficult to really narrow that down. And that's when we get into our second poll question. And I want to open this up and say, all right, let's look at, and let me bring this poll back up. How are you using or planning to use generative AI tools like ChatGPT? And select all that apply here. So if you could go in and try to select any of these that matter to you. And I'll give everybody a few minutes. And it looks like Mike is back. John, if you could admit him back to the presenter role, that'd be great.
Okay.
And while we do that, I'll give everybody a few seconds. There you are, Mike.
Sorry about that.
No worries, man. And it looks like everybody is, at least we got enough. So I'm going to end the voting and share the results out. And it looks like the bulk of everyone said, well, we had a tie at 26%. Analyzing data for insights. I like to hear that. And then generating ideas. Let's see, what was third? Creating graphics and art. Yeah, that's a really cool one. You see a lot of awesome use cases around that. Producing marketing content. Yep. And then the other. I'd be interested in understanding what the other is. If whoever put that could put it in the chat, or if they're willing to share what that is. I'm always curious around some of the ideas people have. But yeah, this all sort of lines up with what we've seen as well. Awesome. I'm going to stop sharing these and get back into the presentation. And now we're going to go into how does ChatGPT sort of collide with analytics and insights and give us a sort of an easier way to use this. And thank God you're back, Mike, because I need you on this slide. So what is it good at? What is it not good at? How do we sort of break that down?
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Joey. And apologies again for that connection problem. So what is it good at? Well, obviously it's good at, all the teenagers will tell you, right? It's good at writing things, generating text, right? It's good at understanding something that you're asking about and responding to it, the visualizations, the drawings. In fact, that idea of the mixed modal, being able to understand video, being able to generate images, that's the growing capabilities of GPT. The things that it's not good at, and this is true for the large language models in general, well, it's not good at all these very precise things, right, that enterprise software needs. So things like enforcing enterprise level security, making sure the data is only used for the purpose that it was intended for, making sure that the users only have access to the data that they're supposed to get to, being able to do calculations and stick to the facts. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, it's pre-trained on the entire internet, but the entire internet includes a whole lot more than just your business, and it doesn't include your data, right? So it's really great at all of these kind of broad things, understanding and capability, almost like if you hire a brand new employee who's walking into your business, it's good at all the things that person would be good at, but it's not good at all the things that are precise to your business that you need to be able to build out. In fact, it's some of the core things that are most important here is to realize that when it uses when a large language model is using your data, it's able to, sorry, not using your data, when it's processing information for you. It's not being used to train the models. That's something that we've heard in the past, but the commitment now is that it won't be used to train the models, but it needs to be a private instance. It needs to be something that is specific to you when that data is confidential and needs to be kept secure, right? When you need the ability to wipe out any data in a system on demand, well, that's something that you've got to make sure you have control over the instance of the large language model that's basically being used to drive it. So lots of concepts, lots of ideas here around what's good and what's bad. Yep. So this is where we get to the concept of the powerful combination, right? So you've got the large language models that are ready for the enterprise, right? What does that mean? Well, that means they're pre-trained on the internet and they're private for you, right? This idea of the private instances, that's that green circle. But kind of out of the box, again, they're just trained on the internet and they don't really know your business. They'll keep your information safe if they access it, but they don't really know a lot and they can't really be very precise. The augmented analytics platforms, the blue circle on the right side, well, those tools, and AnswerRocket is a great example there, truly understand your data, truly understand what it means to talk about a market share or the impact of a price change or a market mix model or an outlier, a white space, all these things that matter to us in the packaged goods industry. And so what you got is the intersection of these two things, the blue circle and the green circle, where things come together. So now if we can use the power of that language model to understand the question, to understand the conversation that's happening with the user, but use the power of the analytics platform to bring in the precise knowledge and calculations and insights that'll respond to it, use the enterprise large language model to essentially narrate the story, to tell the story in a compelling way that is persuasive to people, but relying on facts that are checked by the augmented analytics platform. So we avoid those key problems that happen out there with the language models by themselves. This kind of 1-2 punch between these two components can really lead to an ideal of both situations, right? Suddenly you have an augmented analytics platform in terms of all the deep capabilities that your business needs, and it's made more friendly and intuitive by this language model that's working in tandem with it.
And whenever I bring it back to what it means for marketers, right? And going back to the vicious cycle slide that I showed you, oh, there's a problem. Let me pull in an analyst and wait, or let me pull in an analyst and wait so long that I'm ultimately going to have to guess. Gone are those days in this world where you bring augmented analytics and large language models together. Imagine when you have that question, you can ask it. You can go into this platform, no learning curve. It's just like you're chatting with an analyst on your team. You get insights back, you get visualizations back, you get answers back. It gets smarter over time, just like the analyst on your team. The longer you work with them, they, just like Mike said, they can start to finish your sentences, right? So this is the world that we envision with the combination of augmented analytics and large language models. And then also it's the types of knowledge that you're able to tap into. It gets really interesting. And we're going to start seeing more of this over time. But historically, we've been living in database tables, spreadsheets, reports, dashboards. This is where analytical tools have really lived. And this is just sort of what we've been constrained to. And it's not all of the knowledge in your company. I talk to customers all the time. Well, this gets me about halfway there. Then I got to go pull in my sort of surveys and different studies that we've done and go search through all these articles to put together the full story, right? Well, with GPT and with the sort of this new technology and new capability and innovation, it's all open, right? Generative AI can help us get information out of our entire knowledge base quickly, right? And not just pointing you in the direction of that PDF that helps explain, what's going on in a specific market where you're losing share, right? But also generate the insights out of that article and say, here's where I found these insights and here's the conclusion that I've made about why you're losing share in a specific market. Just to say this is more future facing, but it's absolutely in the ballpark of this type of technology. And what we're building and what we've been talking about, this combination of AI and augmented analytics and large language models, meet Max. This is the product that we've been working on for the past several months. And think of Max as an AI assistant for your analysis. When you have a question, you chat Max. Max is available whenever you need Max. Max is connected to your data, so he understands different business concepts. Max is skilled in advanced analytics. So not just, hey, what questions or what happened to my market share? You can say, why is something happening? What are the big drivers of this change? What's going to happen next? And help me predict the future. This is what you get with Max, but not just getting simple answers. You're spinning your raw data and your facts into insightful narratives, into a narrative that can be a complete answer that helps answer the question, but more importantly, and I keep saying it, helps you get back to action, right? That's the important piece. How do you go from question to action faster? And that's where Max comes in. So you ask a question, Max researches across the different data sources and knowledge articles that exist in your company, and you get an answer in plain English along with a visualization. So let me show you a couple of quick examples of what I'm talking about here. And let me make sure I'm, yep. So you should be able to see my screen here. Mike, can you give me a, yep, cool.
You got it.
So if you're familiar with GPT, then this should look fairly similar. It's not far off from the GPT interface, the ChatGPT interface. And I'm looking at the same data set here, the pasta data set. So instead of asking a lot of questions, I'm just going to say, how did pasta sales do over the last 12 months? And what Max is going to do is Max is going to interpret this question. Max is going to find the right skills, the right ways to answer this question. Max is telling me what I'm looking at in terms of, all right, I'm looking at sales and pasta and a date range. And then Max is going to do his best to answer this question for me. So we'll give him Max a couple of seconds, see what he comes up with. So here you can see an article that's been generated for me where I get a headline that pasta sales increased about 16.8%. It looks like Giovanni Rana, Private Label, and Barilla were leading the way. So those are the top three manufacturers. It looks like was a significant increase from sales the same period a year earlier, increased by 285 million. And then it starts breaking down for the specific brands, how they performed. And ultimately what their contribution was to the overall gains. And then you get a visualization here. You get a few different visualizations. This one showing you the different brands and how they performed. In this case, it's trending those three brands over time. And then again, just sort of trends the category over time, looking at how it performed in that time period. So I get a lot of information in a single question. I get visualizations to support that, and then I can follow up and maybe ask a question like, what were the drivers of Ebro Foods sales in March 2023? And this is asking Max to look at, it's more of a why question. Hey, why are our sales down? What are the drivers of my sales? So again, invoking what we would call a rocket skill in our world, which is basically one of those data science routines that understands how to go gather the right data and how to present it back to the user in form of insights and also visualizations to tell you, hey, why are we losing or gaining sales? So again, Max is going to look through, in this case, segments, subcategories, base sizes, and brands. The total sales year-over-year difference was minus 3.3 million. The decrease came from Semolina, which is a segment, had the highest negative impact on sales change, contributing about 2.4 million. The decrease in 16-ounce sales in Ronzoni had the second and third highest. However, filled pasta sales increased 6.38%. So getting a pretty complete answer here where it digs through all of these different dimensions, if you will, the brands and the different breakouts. And what I'm able to do is I could follow up and say, well, what about the UPCs, right? I could follow up with a different question that could go back to a different sort of contribution rank. And I get this visualization here where it's telling me all of the drivers. So you can see the number one was Semolina, the number two was the 16-ounce, 3 was Ronzoni, and then you can even see 4 and 5 were the shortcut and long cut. But the 20th is Remaining Form, or 9th is Skinner, which was a brand. So this is a really interesting way, not only to just ask questions, but to ask questions in plain English and get back an answer very quickly that's very rich from an insight perspective. So very exciting stuff that we see as cutting edge in terms of helping our customers get to insights much quicker. So let me stop sharing that, and I've got a couple of other slides before we round this out. And we really want to focus in on some of the use cases for CPG. So one of the primary use cases, and it shouldn't be a shock as I've been showing some Nielsen data here, is optimization of your category and brand performance drivers. And drivers is the big thing, because knowing what happened over time is great, but I want to know why. I need to know why my share is up or down, or my volume, or whatever it might be. So asking questions like, what's driving my brand's market share, using Max to dig through all of the syndicated sources you have there, whether it's Nielsen, IRI, something else. But why this is a good place to start is all CPGs, all the ones I've talked to are investing in syndicated data. That data is expensive, but it's very hard to get insights out of that. There's usually a handful of folks at each company that are really good at it. And it's one of those use cases where traditionally you said, hey, put a dashboard on top of it, send it out to the users. I'm sure they're going to be great. Well, that kicks off that vicious cycle we talked about. So that's why this is a really good use case to start with, because it's data that you need to be reporting on now. And it's data that can help you find opportunities. Similar to that is the drivers of consumer sentiment, right? So looking at things like panel data, Kantar data, for instance. Again, very similar to that Nielsen data, it's complex. It's something that you put a dashboard on top of and say, okay, hopefully this will settle them down and they can get their insights. Not really the case. You really need to dig around this data and be very data literate in terms of using some of those dashboards or Excel pivot tables, whatever it might be, to get to those insights that give you that aha, that this is where we should be leaning in. Here are our opportunities. So it's a great use case for Max, because you could just say, what's driving our sentiment? How's salience, meaningful difference sort of trending over time in a specific market? And what are the drivers of those? Let me run a driver analysis on these so I can see age groups and income bands and different demographic details, so I can understand who is my consumer and what should I be doing to capture more of that. And then finally, we've got many more use cases. So we're agnostic to the data set. I used those two because we've got a lot of customers that are seeing a lot of success in those two right now. But we also have a lot of customers who are seeing success in marketing effectiveness, SKU optimization, sales volume analysis, P&L, shipment, you name it, many more, right? There's a lot of data out there that Max can tap into and augmented analytics can tap into and help you get to these insights faster. So we got about 5 minutes left. I want to open it up for questions, but before we do that, on the screen here is a QR code. If you scan this, you can sign up for the Max waitlist, and you can be part of sort of the first user group that uses the product. I think we've got close to 1,000 folks already on the wait list. So it's been people have been rolling in pretty quickly on that. So sign up if you're interested in that technology. If you have any questions you don't want to ask today, please reach out to either myself or Mike, and we'll be happy to answer them and meet with you offline. But hopefully you saw something really cool. Hopefully we taught you something today, and I appreciate everybody taking the time. If you have any questions, we'll take the next 6 minutes and answer them for you.
Okay, well, that was really outstanding. Thank you both. We have a bunch of questions and some comments in the chat box. So to start us off, we don't currently have access to syndicated data. Would we have access to that through AnswerRocket?
What was the question again? I was looking at the questions in the chat box and wasn't listening. Sorry, John.
Sure, okay. We don't currently have access to syndicated data. Would we have access to that through AnswerRocket?
No, we're a software platform, not a data provider. So we help our customers visualize and get insights from their data.
But exactly. But you don't have to have syndicated data. If you have your own manufacturing data, supply chain data, ERP data, we can work with any of that to solve problems. The use cases Joey showed were on Kantar data or other syndicated sources, but we attach to many other sources of data, not just those. So odds are you have data that we could work with.
That's right.
Another question: how will Max bring in business data into the answers, different hierarchies?
Yeah. So go ahead, Mike. You take that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we so basically lots of different hierarchies is kind of the bread and butter of the AnswerRocket solution, because we are deep in this industry and we run into it all the time. The way that AnswerRocket brings that Max brings that data in is based on what the user is asking. We determine using the language model. We determine the specifics that they're asking about. We turn that into a database query that retrieves those facts. Then we write insights about those facts, and those are fed into the language model for the final answer. So the short version of it is we assist the language model to get the information it needs, and it provides the answer.
Okay, we had a comment in here, I guess directed to you, Joey. Other could mean creating first draft content, sales letters, etc., but with very close human oversight. I guess you asked what does other mean. So there's your answer.
Got it.
Okay. All righty. Another question. Ability to fold in unstructured data sources is a key advantage. What about natural language queries for decision makers?
Yeah, and I think James then followed up. Max introduced as I hit send. So Max is that, right? Where and I think we all know decision makers, they have great questions, but it's hard sometimes for them to ask them, especially in computer speak, right? And get very literal with metrics, dimensions, time periods, all of those things. So Max is the answer to that, where you can just say, why did we lose sales? Why is our volume down in Bulgaria? And I'm just sort of making something up, but that's how a decision maker talks. That's how Max expects you to talk. And that's how Max is going to take that question and answer it.
Okay. Here's a long question. How can companies navigate the data security concerns with ChatGPT? How do I ensure my company data isn't being used to train the model and that others will be able to access my company info?
Yeah, probably the most common question that we get. Mike, I'll let you just sort of talk about that if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, so the providers of these language models have in the terms and conditions of their uses, they tell you what's going to happen with your data. These are reliable companies with a lot of depth to them. In the case of ChatGPT, it's being hosted by Microsoft Azure. If you go online and use ChatGPT like the teenagers do when they're writing their term papers, that's ultimately going to a Microsoft Azure warehouse or basically cloud provider. If you work with Microsoft to get your own instance, a private instance of GPT, it's going to be in that same Azure environment, but it will be only for you. Either way, the terms are spelled out well in their documentation. So ultimately, if you have if your enterprise has private data, you want to ensure that it's not being used, that it's only for you, that it's not being used for anyone else, that you can destroy it on demand, and all the things that kind of go with normal data governance. Then basically the fine print on the agreements with the cloud providers is where you need to turn. What you'll find is that in the case of Azure, if you would be willing to store that data in an Azure database, then you have roughly the same assurances if you send that information or interact with that information through an instance of GPT. Prove that for yourself in your relationship with your cloud provider. But roughly speaking, if you'd be willing to have a private cloud instance on Azure, then you have the same assurances on the use of the large language model.
And so basically, don't use ChatGPT. Don't upload your data to ChatGPT or anything like that. Use the enterprise API, and that's what we leverage whenever we're working with our internal stuff and also with our clients.
Okay. Next, how can my company experiment with using generative AI for analytics? How would we get started?
Well, the easiest way is right underneath my name is my email address. Just send me a note. We can help you get started. So I'd say that's probably the easiest way to do it. But if you ask me, I would say ask ChatGPT the easiest way to get started. You might get a better answer. But we've got a way let me put it this way. We've got prospects, we've got customers who are getting their hands on the technology now and experimenting with this in several different use cases. So if it's something your company's trying to do to look at analysis, leveraging this type of technology, find companies like AnswerRocket that can help you out.
Okay, next, where do you think the tech is? Should most companies be waiting until it matures?
Well,
Yeah, that's a great question. So the short answer is no. In other words, it's going to get better, but it's already past the tipping point of productivity. And anybody that's building software around it is going to be adapting to those new changes as they come along. So now is the time. Now is the time to strike because of all the advantages that it offers, and the tech will change even very fundamentally as we go forward. But the software that uses that tech is going to keep and stay current with it as it evolves. So this is the time.
I've got Joey, a strong opinion on that. If you're waiting to use this, you're going to get behind.
Right. Okay, well, that's all for questions, and thank you both. That was fascinating, and I thank you both. Both excellent presentations.
Thank you,
John. Thanks everyone else, and hopefully we talk with some of you soon. Have a great day.
Absolutely. And to continue the conversation with Mike and Joey, their emails are on the screen. You can check them out, and I'm sure they'll welcome any kind of queries or comments from you. Thank you very much.